Have Gun. Will Travel told us the story of a refined gunfighter navigating chaos, danger, and moral dilemmas across the Old West. But when the cameras stopped, the lives behind those familiar faces took a very different path. Some of them have changed so drastically, you won't believe who they became. Stay with us as we uncover their transformations. Richard Boone as Paladin. Richard Allen Boone was born on June 18, 1917, in Los Angeles, California. At 40 years old, he played Paladin, the refined yet deadly gun-for-hire in Have Gun, Will Travel. The role transformed the series into something deeper and more intelligent, making Boone one of the most recognizable faces of Western television. As his fame grew, Boone's personal life became increasingly complicated, especially in his marriages. He first married Jane Hopper in 1937, but the relationship ended in 1940, unable to withstand his early struggles and restless ambition. Years later, he married Mimi Kelly in 1949, yet that union also collapsed within a year, revealing a pattern of emotional intensity and difficulty maintaining balance. It wasn't until 1951 that he married Claire McAloon, a relationship that would last until his death. But even this stability came with its own strain. Boone was deeply committed to his work, often prioritizing his career over domestic life, and his strong personality could make him distant and hard to live with. That same pressure followed him into his health, where the consequences became far more serious. Over the years, Boone developed a heavy dependence on alcohol and cigarettes, habits that grew alongside the demands of his career. What began as a way to manage stress gradually took a physical toll, damaging his throat and respiratory system. Eventually, he was diagnosed with throat cancer, a condition that directly attacked the very voice that had defined his commanding presence on screen. Even as the illness progressed, Boone remained active, continuing to work and teach, but his strength declined steadily, turning his final years into a slow and difficult fight against a disease that left little room for recovery. Richard Boone passed away on January 10, 1981, at the age of 63 in St. Augustine, Florida, due to complications from throat cancer. Following his wishes, his ashes were scattered in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Hawaii. With an estimated net worth of around $5 million, Boone left behind a legacy built on discipline, talent, and intensity, but also a life shaped by personal struggles that quietly unfolded beyond the spotlight. Kam Tong as Hey Boy. Kam Tong was born on December 18, 1906, in Oakland, California. At 51 years old, he played Hey Boy, the loyal and observant hotel clerk at the Carlton Hotel in Have Gun, Will Travel. Though a supporting role, his character became a familiar and essential presence that helped define the atmosphere of the series. To gain this role, Kam Tong had already built a steady career through discipline and persistence. He appeared in numerous productions such as Flower Drum Song, 1961, The Time Tunnel, and I Spy, often portraying Asian characters at a time when opportunities were extremely limited. His ability to remain consistently employed in Hollywood during that era was itself a quiet achievement, proving his reliability and professionalism. This steady rise allowed him to support his family, especially his wife Betty Sakata, whom he married in 1959, but it also meant carrying the full responsibility of financial stability, turning his career into both a success and a constant obligation within his marriage. As the years went on, the physical demands of continuous work and the pressure of maintaining a stable life began to affect his health. Balancing acting, running his restaurant Shanghai Lil's in San Francisco, and supporting his family required relentless effort, leaving little room for rest. Over time, these pressures contributed to serious heart-related issues, which developed quietly but progressively, ultimately becoming the defining factor in his final years. Kam Tong passed away on November 8, 1969, at the age of 63 in Costa Mesa, California, due to heart failure. He left behind his wife, Betty Sakata, and their children, along with a career that reflected years of dedication in an industry that rarely offered equal recognition. With an estimated net worth of around $500,000, his legacy remains tied to perseverance and hard work, standing as one of the early Asian American actors who maintained a lasting presence on American television. Lisa Liu as Hey Girl. Lisa Liu was born on January 19, 1927, in Beijing, China. At 31 years old, she played Hey Girl, a Chinese female hotel assistant who worked closely with Hey Boy at the Carlton Hotel in Have Gun, Will Travel. Though appearing in 21 episodes, her role as a polite, intelligent young woman helped bring a rare Asian female identity into a Western series. Her path to that role was built through real struggle and discipline. After leaving China in 1947 due to the Civil War, she moved to the United States and studied at the University of Hawaii, while working multiple jobs, including accountant, laboratory technician, and radio announcer. In 1958, she made her stage debut in The Tea House of the August Moon, then quickly moved into television. By 1960, she starred opposite James Stewart in The Mountain Road, marking her first major Hollywood breakthrough. Her career reached another peak in the 1970s when she moved into Hong Kong cinema, winning 3 Golden Horse Awards, Best Actress for The 14 Amazons, 1972, and The Last Tempest, 1976, and Best Supporting Actress for The Empress Dowager, 1975. Alongside her rising career, her personal life remained centered on her marriage to Shelling Huang, whom she stayed with until his death in 1996. Together they raised 3 children, including composer Lucia Huang. However, maintaining a career across the United States, Hong Kong, and later mainland China required constant travel, long filming schedules, and extended periods away from home. This created a continuous balancing act between her responsibilities as a wife and mother and her ambition as an international actress working in multiple languages and industries. Her later career proved her lasting relevance. She portrayed Empress Dowager Cixi in The Last Emperor, 1987, a film that won 9 Academy Awards and later appeared in The Joy Luck Club, 1993, and Crazy Rich Asians, 2018, reaching new generations of audiences. On May 5, 2025, at the age of 98, she became the oldest person ever honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, marking one of the most significant recognitions of her career. As of 2026, Lisa Liu is 99 years old and remains a respected figure in global cinema. With an estimated net worth of around $5 million, her life stands as a rare example of longevity, cultural influence, and persistence, bridging Eastern and Western film industries for more than 6 decades. Hal Needham as brawler/henchman/cowhand. Hal Brett Needham was born on March 6, 1931, in Memphis, Tennessee. At 28 years old, he played Brawler, a rough physical henchman in Have Gun, Will Travel. Though his role was small, it marked the beginning of a career that would later reshape Hollywood action filmmaking. Needham's rise was not built on fame, but on risk. Starting as a stunt double for Richard Boone, he quickly became one of the most respected stuntmen in the industry, working on films like How the West Was Won and The Bridge at Reagan. His partnership with Burt Reynolds would later explode into success with Smokey and the Bandit, 1977, and The Cannonball Run, 1981, turning him into a director known for speed, danger, and spectacle. But that same relentless drive defined his personal life in a different way. His first marriage to Arlene Ruth Wheeler in 1960 ended in 1977 after years of physical injuries and constant time away from home. His second marriage to Danny Crane in 1981 also failed by 1987, unable to survive the same cycle of obsession with work and physical toll. Only in 1996, When he married Ellen Wynne Williams, did he find a more stable relationship, but by then, much of his life had already been shaped by decades of sacrifice and imbalance. Physically, Needham paid a price few could imagine. He broke more than 50 bones throughout his career, surviving stunts that pushed the limits of safety long before modern protections existed. These injuries accumulated over time, leaving lasting damage to his body. In his later years, after receiving major honors including a Lifetime Achievement Award in 2001 and an Academy Governor's Award in 2012, he was diagnosed with cancer, a final challenge that his body could no longer endure. Hal Needham passed away on October 25, 2013, at the age of 82 in Los Angeles. His death came shortly after his cancer diagnosis, closing the chapter on a life defined by risk and innovation. With an estimated net worth of around $3 million, he left behind not just films, but an entire legacy of stunt work that changed how action was created on screen. Edward Faulkner as Ben Fielden. Edward Faulkner II was born on February 29, 1932, in Lexington, Kentucky. At 26 years old, he played Ben, a lawman responsible for maintaining order in frontier towns in Have Gun, Will Travel. Though appearing in only 13 episodes, his role as a young authority figure added realism to the law and order structure of the series. Before stepping in front of the camera, Faulkner lived a life far removed from Hollywood. He served as a jet fighter pilot in the United States Air Force after graduating from the University of Kentucky, then returned home to manage his family's building supply business when his father's health declined. However, after his father's death in 1957, the company collapsed due to internal mismanagement, forcing him to start over. That turning point led him to move to Beverly Hills in 1958 with his wife Barbara Faulkner and their young daughter. Within just 1 month, through connections with director Andrew V. McLaglen and actor Richard Boone, he secured his first role in Have Gun, Will Travel, launching a career that would eventually include over 250 television appearances and around 30 films, including The Green Berets, 1968, alongside John Wayne. While his career steadily expanded, his personal life remained anchored in his long marriage to Barbara Faulkner, whom he married on June 12, 1954. Unlike many actors of his era, there were no public divorces or scandals. Instead, their relationship lasted nearly 6 decades and raised 4 children together. Barbara supported his transition from military service to acting and later through his shift into the business world in 1975, when he joined Sea Containers, Inc. and became president of its San Francisco subsidiary. In later years, Faulkner gradually reduced his acting work and focused on business before fully retiring in 1987. Unlike many in the industry, there are no confirmed records of major illness defining his life, and he remained active through occasional appearances and film festival events well into his later decades. Edward Faulkner passed away on August 26, 2025, in Vista, California, at the age of 93 from natural causes. He had previously lived for many years in Palm Desert, California, following the death of his wife Barbara in 2013. With an estimated net worth of around $1.5 million, his life reflects a rare balance: success in multiple careers, a lasting marriage, and a steady presence both on and off screen that avoided the turbulence often associated with Hollywood. Tony Reagan, as Hotel Carlton desk clerk. Tony Reagan was born Douglas Francis Anthony Reagan on August 11, 1908, in Sparks, Nevada, United States. At 40 years old, he played the Hotel Carlton desk clerk, a front desk hotel employee responsible for greeting guests and managing check-ins in Have Gun, Will Travel. Appearing in about 20 episodes, his role as a hotel staff worker helped establish the daily operations of the Carlton Hotel setting. Before appearing on screen, Reagan had already built a career behind the scenes as a casting director at Paramount Studios prior to 1959. He later became deeply involved with the Screen Extras Guild, eventually serving as its president and later President Emeritus. On screen, he appeared in numerous films and television shows, often cast as specific background roles such as reporters, bar patrons, casino guests, or restaurant customers, contributing to large ensemble scenes that required realistic everyday characters. This combination of casting work and acting allowed him to maintain consistent employment over many years. His personal life included a long marriage to Grace Moreau Clark from 1938 until their divorce in 1978, spanning 40 years and resulting in 2 children, Douglas Jr. and Katie Reagan. Shortly after, he married Charlotte Nadine Taylor on May 27, 1978, entering a new phase of life after decades of balancing family responsibilities with a steady but modest career in Hollywood. In his later years, Reagan reduced his involvement in both casting and acting, remaining in Los Angeles where he had spent most of his professional life. He passed away on August 1, 1988, in Los Angeles, California, just 10 days before his 81st birthday. The cause of death was not publicly disclosed. With an estimated net worth of around $150,000, his life reflects decades of steady work as both a casting director and supporting actor, contributing to the structure of Hollywood productions without ever becoming a central star. Carey Jr. as Earl Tibner / Jonah Quincy. Henry. George Carey Jr. was born on May 16, 1921, in Saugus, California. At 37 years old, he played Earl Tibner and Jonah Quincy, frontier cowboys and townsmen involved in local conflicts in Have Gun, Will Travel. His roles, though limited to 12 episodes, reinforced the rugged human side of the Western world the series portrayed. Born into Hollywood legacy as the son of actor Harry Carey and actress Olive Carey, his career began under enormous expectations. After serving in the U.S. Navy during World War II, he entered acting and quickly found his place in John Ford's circle, appearing in films like Three Godfathers, 1948, She Wore a Yellow Ribbon, 1949, and Rio Grande, 1950, often alongside John Wayne. Over time, he built a career of nearly 100 films and almost 100 television appearances. But success came with pressure. Living in the shadow of his father's name created a constant need to prove himself. That pressure eventually led him into a long battle with alcohol. For years, Carey struggled with drinking, a habit that affected both his career stability and personal life. However, unlike many of his peers, his story did not end in collapse. His marriage to Marilyn Fix, whom he married in 1944, became the turning point. Their relationship lasted nearly 68 years, and with her support, he was able to confront and overcome his addiction, stabilizing both his life and career. Together, they raised 4 children, and his ability to rebuild himself became one of the defining aspects of his later life. In his later years, Carey continued to appear in films and documentaries, including John Ford's America, 1989, and received recognition such as the Golden Boot Award in 1987 and the Silver Spur Award in 2003. His career evolved from leading roles to respected veteran appearances, reflecting decades of experience in the Western genre. He also authored Company of Heroes, documenting his life within John Ford's legendary film circle. Carey Jr. passed away on December 27, 2012, in Santa Barbara, California, at the age of 91 from natural causes. He left behind his wife Marilyn Fix Carey, their children, and a career that spanned more than 6 decades. With an estimated net worth of around $2 million, his legacy stands as a story of endurance, living under a famous name, facing personal struggles, and ultimately finding stability through family and perseverance. Roy Barcroft as Sheriff Swink / Simon Howard Clifford Ravenscroft, known as Roy Barcroft, was born on September 7, 1902, in Crab Orchard, Nebraska. At 55 years old, he played Sheriff Swink and Simon, lawmen and authority figures often entangled in moral conflict in Have Gun, Will Travel. His roles contributed to the tension of the series, often representing flawed or pressured figures of justice. Before becoming a familiar face on screen, Barcroft lived a physically demanding life. He enlisted in the U.S. Army at just 15 during World War I, was wounded in France, and later worked a wide range of jobs, from ranch hand to railway laborer, before entering acting in the 1930s. By 1943, he signed a 10-year contract with Republic Pictures and became one of the most recognizable villains in Western films, appearing in an extraordinary volume of productions, often averaging close to 10 films per year. His filmography included titles like The Fighting Seabees, 1944, and serials such as Radar Men from the Moon, 1952. Despite portraying ruthless villains on screen, his personal life told a different story. He was married to Vera Virginia Doris Thompson from 1932 until his death, maintaining a long-term relationship that spanned decades. Earlier marriages to Layla Wade and Hortense Flanagan ended in divorce, reflecting a life that began with instability before finding lasting commitment. As the Western genre declined in the late 1950s, his career slowed, and he transitioned into television roles. However, his health began to deteriorate, and he was eventually diagnosed with kidney cancer. Roy Barcroft passed away on November 28, 1969, at the age of 67 in Woodland Hills, Los Angeles, due to cancer. In a final act that reflected his character off-screen, he donated his body to medical science. With an estimated net worth of around $800,000, he left behind a legacy defined by consistency and professionalism, remembered as one of the most recognizable Western villains who, in real life, was anything but. Ted Smile as Townsman. Ted Smile was born on May 14, 1921, in Wyoming, West Virginia. At around 30 years old, he appeared as a townsman, a local resident often involved in crowd scenes and group conflicts in Have Gun, Will Travel. His roles, across 11 episodes, reflected the ordinary citizens who shaped the tension and moral dilemmas in Western storytelling. Unlike leading actors, Smile built his career through small but consistent appearances in Western films during the early 1950s. He appeared in titles such as Son of the Renegade, 1953, and The Lawless Rider, 1954, typically playing supporting roles like townspeople, riders, or background characters with brief dialogue. These roles were essential to the structure of Western films. His work placed him among the many reliable character actors who quietly supported the industry without major recognition. His personal life remained largely private, with little public documentation of marriages or controversies. He was the brother of stuntman Fred Carson, suggesting a family connection to the film industry behind the scenes. Unlike many actors of his era who experienced public struggles, there are no verified records of major scandals, legal issues, or widely documented personal crises tied to his name. Ted Smile passed away on November 2, 2010, in Los Angeles, California, at the age of 89. The cause of death was not publicly disclosed. With an estimated net worth of around $300,000, his life reflects the quieter side of Hollywood. Olan Soule as desk clerk. Alan Evart Soule was born on February 28, 1909, in La Harpe, Illinois. At 49 years old, he played the desk clerk, a hotel receptionist who handled guest check-ins and provided information in Have Gun, Will Travel. Though appearing in 11 episodes, his role represented the everyday working-class figures that grounded the series' world. Soule's career did not begin in television, but on radio, starting as early as 1926. He spent more than a decade on the daytime program Bachelor's Children, and from 1943 to 1949, he was the male lead on First Nighter, performing weekly dramas for national audiences. His voice became his greatest asset. Despite weighing only about 135 pounds, he could convincingly portray a wide range of characters. When radio programs moved to Hollywood in the late 1940s, Soule transitioned into television, appearing in series like Dragnet and The Andy Griffith Show. His most defining work came later, when he became widely recognized as the voice of Batman in Super Friends, voicing the character across the first 7 seasons. This role introduced him to a new generation and secured his place in animation history. Off-screen, he maintained a stable personal life, married to Norma Elizabeth Miller from January 10, 1929, until her death in 1992. A marriage lasting over 63 years, during which they raised 2 children. However, like many lifelong smokers of his era, his health declined due to lung cancer. His final years were marked by illness rather than public appearances, as he gradually withdrew from work. Sadly, Olan Soule passed away on February 1, 1994, in Los Angeles, California, at the age of 84 due to lung cancer. He left behind a legacy that spanned nearly 7 decades, from early radio drama to iconic animation voice work. With an estimated net worth of around $1.2 million, his career stands as a rare example of longevity across multiple entertainment eras. So now we all know that time has taken the cast of Have Gun, Will Travel, 1957, far beyond the frontier they once brought to life. What began as a story about justice and survival on screen became, in reality, a collection of very different lives. So which cast member's life stayed with you the most? And whose story do you think changed the most from then to now? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoy revisiting classic TV like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for the next story.